Hey everyone, welcome to the start of the very first mini-series on my channel, part 1 of Mont Saint-Michel. So, the idea behind doing a mini-series here on the channel is just to give me a break from building what I'm doing right now, being Berlin Noir, and also just to give you all the viewers something new to look at. In this case today we are working on Mont Saint-Michel, located off the coast of Normandy in France. Just a very, very, very small little island with an abbey on top and a very cool little medieval-like village surrounded by walls. It's a tidal island, meaning depending on the time of day, either it is surrounded by ocean, or at low tide the ocean recedes and it is accessible by land. The real life location has a road leading out to it, which, for tourists and just people to visit the island, but I guess you could briefly saw there a second ago. I have a little tunnel poking out of the mountain right there. That's temporary, but I wanted this island to look a little more separate, a little more, more fantasy-like. Something, maybe not obviously it's based on a real location, but I wanted to give it more of a wonderful fantasy vibe to it. Which is why I'm not connecting, at least not connecting a visible road to the island. That tunnel will eventually be hidden, so people can still obviously go to the island, but you won't actually see a road going to the island. Just because I thought that would take away from this very unique location. So I decided. When I was considering, doing a mini-series, I decided on this. I asked in the last episode of Berlin Noir for you guys to, give me some ideas, any of your thoughts on possible, short series I can do. And I appreciate all of your responses. I'm definitely going to log some of those away for the future. Initially, I wanted to do actually a small version of Venice, because Venice is definitely pretty sizable. But just to get the vibe of Venice, have the very, very narrow canals and the similar styled buildings. It's a very unique location, so I wanted to see if I could do that. But I tried it out in game looking for some assets and stuff, but I didn't really want to do that. I didn't think it would really make sense to do a mini version of Venice, just because there's so much. I mean, while a lot of Venice is kind of repetitive, just canals and narrow bridges and streets winding through the city, there are some very unique aspects of it. And I thought that that would turn probably into more than just 3 or 4 episodes. Whereas with this, as I said, you can't not do a mini-series with this. There's only so much you can build on a tiny little island. So I decided to start with the top, with the Abbey at the very top of this little hill. The reason why I did that was more for the logistical side of things, because I really wanted to do my final episode as finishing the top of the island. I wanted to start off first episode working on the village, and then work up from there to a more or less grand finale last episode where I finished this amazing abbey on top. But I thought about it, and I thought this was a smarter play to begin at the top, because I was not sure at all how large this area would end up being, and I thought it'd be much more easier to raise the island, move it, and shrink the island, whatever it may be, versus the other way around if I actually had to if I started from the bottom and then I would have had to possibly squish a very large grand abbey into a small area. So I didn't want to have to deal with that, so I decided to start at the top and work my way down. So hopefully I'm planning on doing this in 3 episodes. First one here being the Abbey and some of the tiered levels coming off of it. The next one ideally just being some of the filler space between the top here and the village at the bottom, and then the third and final episode being the actual medieval-like village and the city tidal walls that surround this island. Possibly a 4th episode if I need to finish off the village, and then maybe have like a long extended cinematic part, especially because I do imagine this will be a very nice optimal build for some nice cinematics. But yeah, I guess that's my plans for this. I guess enough talk on that, and let's get more into what I'm building on screen. So I guess the actual cathedral / abbey that I used here, it's certainly not the one that matches the real life location. It's the closest one I could find that resembled some of the architecture and coloring as to the one in real life at Mont Saint-Michel. The blue roofs that that's kind of France, or the French architecture with the blue roofs, and so I was going for that. Yeah, it's a pretty decent asset, and I think it works well to fit into this Mont Saint-Michel Abbey. But what I was using here, I'm building here, these walls, retaining walls, are actually for rail yards. I stumbled across them looking for some just plain retaining walls to use in place of these. But these are pretty awesome. I'm going to have to find these on my other account for building in Berlin Noir. But yeah, they're really cool because there's ones with different textures, some of the older looks, some of the newer, different type of bricks. And some of them are arched on the outside, some of them are just straight up vertical little pillars sticking out. So they're unique, and yeah, I'm definitely going to be using those in my Berlin Noir series. But yeah, so one challenge in building this was I wanted to really do, pay respect to the amazing detail and levels and tiers that the real life Mont Saint-Michel Abbey has, which I was never ever going to be able to do it perfectly. Like the actual, or I guess the inside area, not inside the Abbey itself, but inside this area, I guess the walkways in between buildings, very narrow in real life, which I wasn't able to do here. But there's also a very large decrease in elevation, what I believe are just stairs, which is what I was attempting to do here. There wasn't much of a decline in elevation, so I made the stairs pretty large to make it look like there was a greater decrease there. So I dragged out the stairs there. But yeah, fortunately the asset of the cathedral there itself has very, very tall windows and buildings. So because of that, I was able to use like ploppable pavement and other ploppable surfaces to just raise up the actual surface itself. So like right there, that window, I'm honestly not really sure what it was. It looks right there in the top left of the screen there a second ago like a large grand entrance or exit, So I raised up the ploppable pavement there, about a minute ago, just to give a little change in elevation, and then build those stairs there with the cobblestone decals. And yeah, so I did that. And then here is just another instance of building, more tiered levels, because in Mont Saint-Michel for certain has many levels. variations in elevation here, and certainly when you're building in city skylines, if you're able to build with the terrain, it makes a huge difference and looks really awesome. And I usually don't do that when I build my own cities. My Berlin Noir, it's just flat, which is more or less accurate to real life Berlin. But my previous series before that, which many of you probably haven't watched because I didn't have many subscribers back then, but my Las Colinas series set in California. Yeah, I named it Las Colinas because that's the hills in Spanish, because I wanted the terrain to be more or less flat but just have some hills here and there. But even those hills are a serious pain to work on. So I really, when I can, I love to work with more or less flat terrain. But obviously, when it comes here to a small island, which is more or less a tiny little hill, you have no choice but to work with the terrain. So that's why I do like when I work with terrain using retaining walls. And since real life Mont Saint-Michel has a lot of these walls, I guess more like castle walls, not necessarily retaining walls, but the real location has that. So I thought that was a good opportunity for me to experiment with working with some different tiered like levels, different elevation. Nice change, but also, for the viewer, all you guys too, I'm sure, like I said myself, when I see someone building with terrain and they do it well, I really enjoy those types of builds. So I wanted to try that out myself here. But so just continuing around the Abbey here, placing these retaining walls. I'm changing it up between some of them, as you can see, have arches on them, whereas that one right there is just, there's no art, or I guess I just added arches there, making them a little smaller by adding a node in between them. But yeah, just different variations. And then here I add some sort of, it looks like a garden, at least on Google Earth, when I was using Google Earth to build this build. Fortunately, there are a ton of street views / like first person views on Google Earth. Not really street views, I guess, because at least on this side there really is no street. But I guess it's just user submitted like first person point of views. There's a ton of those on Google Earth, which is very, very helpful. Because while Google Earth is certainly a very useful tool for building city skylines, it's nice to have that up close view for sure. When Google Earth can only do so much with the satellites. Trees, buildings, shadows in the way. It's hard to get a good view when you're just looking at an aerial 3D point of view. But so here I guess it's I'm not going to call it a garden, but it's more just an outdoor green space, I suppose. But I just more or less just place these pavement, ploppable pavement surfaces, which I guess I should mention, I do change the pavement texture to be just some cobblestone texture, which is actually the same one that I use in Berlin Noir. I just adjust using the mod, the theme mod, you can adjust the, I'm blanking on the term to use, but basically you can increase or zoom in, zoom out, how the level, increase or decrease the level of detail. There you go. So you can adjust the level of detail of the certain environmental textures. So I increased it slightly so the stones were a tad bit bigger. But I also do adjust the cliff texture, because having that blackish, dark gray cliff texture is certainly not realistic to this area of France. When I was starting the series, I wanted to keep it light, not subscribe to a lot of different things, so I didn't subscribe to probably the best themes there for the map, but I do fix it so in the cinematics you will see the updated textures and themes for the build. But yeah, so here I'm building a staircase which will go down to another level a little further down there, which is more just seems to be like some sort of lookout area. Obviously you can look out into the ocean. I'm sure it's a wonderful view with the massive Abbey right behind you, and this very steep hill as well that's just covered in trees. I'm sure it's a wonderful view. I mean, I've personally never been here, never been to France either, but let me know if you personally have been here, because I'd love to hear personally some of the details that you took note on. If you follow my Instagram, you can even DM me some photos that you took of important areas that not inside the Abbey itself, but the street view levels, more or less what I'm talking about, that Google Earth provides. Because most images online, with the exception of using Google Earth, are mostly just distant shots of this island, and also inside the Abbey, and not a lot of stuff that someone like me who's trying to replicate it and build it would take value in. But yeah, so send me some images if you have some that if you visited yourself on my Instagram. Link there to my Instagram is in the description below. But I guess that also brings me to another idea I had, which is letting you guys send me some screenshots of your own personal builds. So I know several YouTubers have tried this. The first one was all the way back when, 2, 3, maybe more years ago, but Fresh Popcorn, one of the first city skyline builders. But he had the idea to have viewers send in screenshots of some of their builds that they're working on and showing them off for a small segment of the video, and maybe giving some recommendations or whatever it may be. And even what I'm really looking forward to is just looking at seeing some new ideas, something that I would never think of myself. So I would love for you guys to send me some. I'd like to maybe begin stockpiling some screenshots, preferably detailed, modded builds. I mean, by all means, if you have a vanilla series in which you go heavily not heavily detailed, but what I mean, kind of like the vanilla builds in which you heavily detail using the vanilla tools, because some of those are very cool and very nice to look at. So I would love for you guys to send me your images through my Instagram as well, and I would like to show them off in future videos. So yeah, but I guess that's my last point for today. This is approaching the end, just finishing off detailing the cliffs here with some rocks. I do leave out me just adding the trees because that's very repetitive and kind of boring to watch. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back next week with part 2.